Hello students, it's your history teacher and I'm here with another online lecture. Today's topic is the Holy Roman Empire, which is the last kingdom of Middle Ages that you have in the presentation. The first important information about it is that Holy Roman Empire has its origin in the East Frankish Empire, so it's modern-day Germany. After the Treaty of Verdun, which was signed in 843 AD, East Frankish Empire was in the hands of Louis the German. As I mentioned, the center of this territory was in modern-day Germany, but at its peak, it included also Kingdom of Italy, the Bohemian Kingdom, and consisted of the hundreds of subunits. This means that even though Holy Roman Empire was one united empire, it had a lot of subunits, a lot of counties, region, we might say, that had its nobles in charge. Now, you might wonder why it was called Holy Roman Empire when it was actually Germany or East Frankish Empire. And now you're about to find out. So after the Battle of Lech that happened in the half of the 10th century, and it was between East Frankish Empire and the Hungarians, Otto I was crowned in Rome in 962 and he founded the Ottoman dynasty. This is important. When German King Otto I was crowned in Rome by Pope, he became Holy Roman Emperor because he had blessing from the Pope and he was just about to re-establish Roman Empire that was there before. By the coronation by the Pope, he gained important relations with the Pope and a lot of prestige because by the time mostly all of the Europe was Christian. So every next German king had to be crowned in Rome to become the Holy Roman Empire. This title was in fact just for prestige. This means that it didn't matter if he would be just German king or Holy Roman Emperor. But now think for a while and guess what sounds more fancy. It's Holy Roman Empire, of course. The other reason for a coronation like this was that the church wanted to spread its influence, and by crowning the German king for Holy Roman Emperor, the emperor became his vassal. Pokiaľ by sme povedali celý názov tej ríše po slovensky, volá sa to Svätá ríša rímska národa nemeckého. V angličtine nám zostáva iba Holy Roman Empire. Čiže môžete si to tam niekde aj vedľa napísať a tak si to pamätať, že naozaj ten názov Svätá ríša rímska je daný iba podľa toho, že cisár bol korunovaný pápežom v Ríme. Ten názov teda takisto vyjadruje iba silu, ktorú pápež nad touto ríšou mal. The idea of the empire was to restore the Roman Imperium as the unity of all Christians. So they had a blessing from the Pope to restore that empire. So we know that Roman Empire was really huge. It spread across all of the Europe. But now they wanted to spread also the Christianity together with other powers. And Otto I was the one who succeeded. So he was from the Ottonian dynasty as well. He was grandson of Otto I and he succeeded because during his lifetime the Holy Roman Empire was at its peak. So it did not restore all of the famous Roman Imperium, but still it had a huge extent as well. After some time, the relations between the emperor and the pope became hostile, and these struggles resulted in investiture controversy. This is very important, basically the most important thing for the Holy Roman Empire. The investiture controversy is the name of the struggle, and it was about different views of whether secular authorities, these are king, dukes, and other titles like knights and sirs and so on, had any legitimate role in appointments to ecclesiastical offices like bishoprics, so bishops, abbots, archbishops, and so on. Či tento konflikt bol medzi, voláme to teda svetská moc, to je tá secular, čiže svetská, secular means svetská, to znamená obyčajná, ľudská. A tá druhá strana je ecclesiastical alebo duchovná, kňažská. A ten spor bol o to, či tá svetská moc môže vládnuť tej duchovnej moci. Alebo naopak, či tá duchovná moc má vládnuť tej svetskej moci. Čiže či je viac cisár alebo pápež. This struggle was longer lasting and it differed according to the views of the emperors and popes. Let's go to another slide that will explain the process of investiture controversy, and let's see who won the conflict. Originally, the king was the one who controlled the appointment of ecclesiastical offices, but the growing secular power of the popes changed the situation. So, also popes had secular power. This means that after they got their papal state in Rome and their power became stronger, they were also deciding about secular matters. For example, they were choosing whom they will crown for emperor. Okay, so they were also important for politics and not just for the ecclesiastical life. So from the beginning of the conflict, the king was in control, but it slowly started to change and the Pope was taking over that control. The Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV and Pope Gregory VII were the ones that escalated the conflict. They had different candidates for the Bishop of Milan because the emperors and also the Pope had different powers. And they both thought that they are the ones who should choose who will be the next bishop. And they had different candidates. And as I mentioned that the popes took over the power from the kings, papacy triumphed. So the Pope Gregory VII chose the Bishop of Milan. For disagreeing with him, he excommunicated Henry IV. This means that he was banished from the church officially. And to call it off, he forced Henry IV to walk to Canossa in the 11th century. First of all, there is a question. Why would the Holy Roman Emperor care for excommunication? He could say doesn't matter, I'm still the king, what some excommunication can do for me. But it has a lot of to do. As to be Holy Roman Emperor, crowned by the Pope, it was very prestigious because of the Christianity that was behind it. People were really strong believers during the Middle Ages, and when their king was excommunicated and had conflict with the Pope, it was no good for the king, for the emperor, for his people. So it was a pretty serious thing. So he had to walk to Canossa in 1077. You can see it in the picture in the bottom. So it's like caricature. And there's a castle, we can say, where it's written Canossa. And there is Pope, but he looks more like a king. He has his crown. He looks very rich. He has some women over there. And they are laughing at the king, the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV, who looks embarrassed and humiliated. This was because this punishment was really commonly used in Middle Ages, and it was that you had to walk from your house to the church that was chosen, and on your way, people made fun of you. This was usually used for adultery, for example, so when a woman was unfaithful to her husband, but also you can see that Henry IV had to do it as well. Maybe you're familiar with the scene from Game of Thrones where Cersei had to walk and all the people were laughing at her, throwing things at her and laughing and saying shame. It was very similar. So in fact, this was practiced in Middle Ages, and you can also see that emperor had to do it as well. This act of humiliation was also the end of the conflict of the investiture controversy, and the emperor lost the conflict. You can see that after all this, how he was humiliated, there was no chance for him. To make the results official, there was a document signed which was called Concordat of Worms. It was in 1122 and it was a compromise. So in the end, the Pope gave something to the Emperor as well, and so they made a compromise. This was that bishops were elected by the clergy, so not just by the Pope, but there was something like elections. Then he was appointed by the king, who gave him a fief. So this means that king was his feudal, and bishop became vassal of the king. And then he was appointed by the Pope, who gave him a ring, and the ring was a symbol of his power as a bishop and also loyalty to the Pope. So this was Concordat of Worms, ending to the investiture controversy. The weakened power of the king and emperor was finally strengthened by Frederick I Barbarossa, who drowned during the Third Crusade in 1190. He was a strong emperor, and he was able to strengthen his position also against the church. But he drowned during the Third Crusade in 1190, that was also called King's Crusade. In 1257, emperor was elected by 7 prince-electors. 3 were members of clergy and 4 were secular members. Slowly, to be the Holy Roman Emperor was only prestigious thing. And so the emperor was elected by the 7 prince-electors, and this function was also very prestigious. Interesting thing about that is that secular members were 4, so there were more of them than the members of the clergy. So it looks like the secular powers had more control. In 13th century, Rudolf I was elected. In the 14th century, the Habsburgs were replaced by Luxembourgs, but after the Sigismund's death, the crown belonged to Habsburgs until the end of empire. So Rudolf I was one of the Habsburgs, but in the 14th century, Rudolf I, who was also King of Bohemia, for example, was elected. In the 14th century, the Habsburgs were replaced by the Luxembourgs, but after the death of Sigismund the Luxembourg, the crown was once again Habsburgian. The very last emperor to be crowned by the Pope was Charles V. It was in 1530 when the Reformation took place. The Reformation, which mostly took place in Holy Roman Empire, will be the next year's topic, so we will stop there just before the Reformation. This last information that were mentioned are just good for the chronology, so we will know what happened after the Concordat of Worms and so on. But what is very important, I will revise just now. So, Holy Roman Empire is East Frankish Empire. Louis the German was the first king of this territory. It was mostly Germany, but also Kingdom of Italy, Bohemian Kingdom. It had hundreds of subunits. Otto I established Ottonian dynasty. He was crowned in Rome by the Pope, so he was the first Holy Roman Emperor. This title was just prestigious, did not have real power, but the church spread its influence through this title. The idea of this empire was to restore the Roman Imperium. They had the blessing from the Pope, but just a little while after, there was a struggle between the emperors and the popes. It was called investiture controversy. It was between the secular power, so king, and between ecclesiastical power, and this was Pope. The conflict escalated when Henry IV, the Holy Roman Empire, and Pope Gregory VII chose the different candidates for the Bishop of Milan. Papacy triumphed. Pope excommunicated Henry and forced him to walk to Canossa, what was a humiliation for the emperor. Predominancy of the Pope was confirmed, and to make up everything, they signed Concordat of Worms, which was a compromise that decided that bishops were elected by the clergy, then appointed by the king, who gave him fief, and then by the Pope, who gave him a ring that was symbol of loyalty to the Pope and of the power of the bishop. The weakened power of the king and emperor was strengthened by Frederick I Barbarossa, who died in King's Crusade, and then the emperors were elected by 7 prince-electors. These electors were members of the clergy and secular members. Secular members, there were more of them, so 4 to 3. This is important for me, so you will know that for the test that is really approaching. So please study, and if there's something you don't understand, just don't hesitate and consult it with me anytime. I'm here to help you in this situation, so don't worry to contact me. For now, stay strong, stay healthy, and bye.